I'm Madison Clark, 32 years old, a nurse at a Seattle hospital. They say nursing is a healing profession, but that night, as I crossed the threshold of my childhood home, my own heart was torn apart in a way that felt irreparable. It was a damp autumn evening. Rain misted the windshield, and cold wind whipped through the vibrant red maple trees lining the familiar street. I'd just finished a grueling 12-hour shift, my body exhausted, eyes burning from lack of sleep. But a small comfort warmed me, returning to the home I'd fought with every ounce of strength and money to save. I still remember the night before, when my parents hugged me tightly. Mom sobbed, calling me their angel. Dad, a stoic man who'd never hugged me in my life, gripped my shoulders and whispered, "You're the family's hero." I believed them. I truly thought that after years of being overlooked, I'd finally earned a place in their hearts. But when I pulled up to the house that day, an eerie sight chilled me to the bone. The flower garden Mom cherished was barren, the soil churned up. Dad's pickup truck was gone from the driveway. The curtains were missing. The house looked stripped bare, like a lifeless skeleton. My heart raced. I rushed inside, shouting, "Mom, Dad, Ryan?" No answer. The living room, where we'd gathered for dinner the night before, was empty. The dining table was gone. The bookshelf vanished. Even the family photo frame was missing. The bare wooden floor reflected the dim yellow streetlight streaming through the window. Then I saw it. A white envelope lying alone in the middle of the floor, as if deliberately placed for me. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The handwriting was rushed, scrawled, but unmistakable. My father's. "Thanks for paying the debt, you fool. We're off to Florida with Ryan. Don't contact us." I froze. Those brief words stabbed my chest like a knife. Just last night, I was their hero. A day later, I was a fool cast aside. The letter slipped from my hands, my body numb. Tears didn't come. I sank to the floor, leaning against the cold wall, staring into the empty void. The sounds around me, cars on the street, the whistling wind, faded, as if I'd been cut off from the world. Questions flooded my mind. Why would they do this? Did they ever love me? Was I just a walking wallet to them all these years? I wanted to scream, to smash something, to cry until I passed out. But amid the shock and pain, another feeling crept in, a cold emptiness, like ice encasing my soul. I didn't have the strength to wail. I just sat there, breathing heavily, clutching the crumpled letter. Memories surged. I saw Mom holding my hand, her voice trembling. "Without you, we'd lose the house." I recalled Dad patting my back with a rare smile. I remembered their proud looks when they posted a photo of me with the debt payoff papers on Facebook, captioned, "Our daughter saved our home." It was all an act. They say the deepest betrayal doesn't come from enemies, but from those you love most. I was living that truth, one I wished was just a nightmare. But in that numbness, a thought sparked. They thought I was a fool. They believed I'd pay their debts and accept being discarded. They didn't know I was no longer the naive girl who trusted their tears. I'd learned to read the fine print, where truth hides behind sweet promises. The previous week, while handling the refinancing to pay the debt, I'd quietly prepared. I read every clause, consulted a lawyer, and did something my parents never noticed. I transferred the house's title to my name. Every document was legal, notarized, signed by them. In other words, this house hadn't been theirs for a long time. They could take the furniture, they could leave me with a cruel letter, but they couldn't steal this home. Not again. I looked up at the shadowy ceiling, and for the first time since reading the letter, a faint smile crossed my lips. A bitter smile, but one filled with strength. They thought they'd won, but really this was just the beginning. I know, as you read this, you might have felt the sting of betrayal, of being used as a tool. If you've been there, please share in the comments below. My story has more twists, internal struggles, and decisions even I didn't expect. Have you ever slept in your car on a cold, rainy night because you had no place to call home? 6 months ago, that was me. An old sedan parked on a Seattle suburb street became my only shelter. The back seat was cluttered with clothes, a thin blanket, and my nursing files, which I clung to as a reminder that I still had a job. I'd just gone through a bitter breakup. The man I trusted for 4 years finally said, "I can't live with someone who's always exhausted from the hospital. You're not exciting anymore." His words were salt in an open wound. I packed my things, left our apartment, and not wanting to burden anyone, chose to sleep in my car. As I huddled under a street lamp's glow, my phone buzzed. "Mom," flashed on the screen. I hesitated but answered. Her voice was choked with sobs, barely recognizable. "Madison, we're we're about to lose the house." I went still. Lose the house? Those words instantly stirred memories of the only place tied to my childhood. The wooden porch where I ate ice cream every summer, the creaky stairs where I wrote letters to Santa, the twinkling Christmas nights when the neighborhood gathered. That house wasn't just a roof. It was the last thread tying me to a family that never truly embraced me. I took a deep breath. "How much, Mom?" She choked out. 280,000. Your dad, he invested poorly." I bit my lip until it bled. That massive sum was due to Dad's risky business ventures and Ryan, my brother. Ryan, the family's star. From childhood, he was pampered. He could break a neighbor's window, and my parents would laugh it off as kids being kids. He dropped out of college, and they said he had unique business sense. He failed project after project, and each time, the family bailed him out. I clearly remember our grandparents leaving an inheritance for both of us to start our lives. But my parents gave it all to Ryan, claiming I was set with my nursing career and didn't need it. Yet, while I slept in my car, Mom called, not to ask how I was, but to beg me to save the family's home. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe the vivid image of that childhood house, like a trembling child begging me not to abandon it, was too much. I couldn't bear to see it auctioned off. The days that followed were mechanical. I drained my savings account, built up over years. I maxed out my credit cards until they flagged red. I even signed a personal loan I knew would take a decade to repay, all to scrape together $280,000. When I brought the thick stack of paperwork and checks to the dinner table, my family was stunned. Dad went quiet, then patted my shoulder. Mom collapsed, hugging my legs, crying, "You're our angel." Ryan stood back, a flicker of unease on his face, but then shook my hand, whispering, "You're the best." I cried, but they were tears of hope. I naively thought I'd finally been seen, that the family love I'd craved for years was real. That night, Mom cooked the grandest meal ever. We raised glasses, laughed, and celebrated. They posted a photo on Facebook. "Our daughter sacrificed everything to save this home. A true hero." Comments poured in, and they gleefully replied to each one. I sat quietly, letting myself bask in what felt like happiness. But that happiness was an illusion. Looking back, I see it clearly. I wasn't a hero, just their ATM. They didn't see me. They saw the money I provided. They didn't embrace me. They embraced the checks I laid on the table. And 6 months later, they left me in an empty house with a cruel letter. I want to ask you, if your loved ones treated you like this, how would you react? Would you crumble or rise to turn pain into strength? If you find my story compelling, comment Y. If not, be honest and comment N. Have you ever sat alone in an empty house, streetlights streaming through the window, while your phone buzzes with calls from Florida? 6 months ago, I begged for their love. Now, they were begging me to pick up. But I didn't answer. I chose silence. And in that silence, I found a strength I never knew I had. The next morning, Seattle was cloaked in thick, icy fog. I threw on a black hoodie, pulled the hood over half my face, and drove to the title office downtown. The chaos from last night was gone, replaced by a cold determination, like steel forged in fire. The clerk eyed me curiously as I set a thick stack of documents on the counter. "I want to report an illegal house sale." My firm words surprised even me. I never thought I could speak so calmly about my own parents. The woman nodded, gesturing for me to sit. I pulled out copies of the refinancing contract, notarized certificates, and most importantly, the deed in my name. She stared at the deed, then looked up surprised. "This house, it's legally yours?" I nodded slightly, my heart pounding but steady. Yes, they tried to sell property they don't own. Those words rang like a verdict, and I knew in that moment the game had flipped. Next, I went to the local police station to file a report. The young officer took notes carefully as I explained, "I'm not asking for arrests yet, I just want the transaction voided." He nodded. "You did the right thing. If you have more evidence, we'll handle it." I signed the forms decisive, as if closing an old chapter of my life. Leaving the title office, a strong winter wind tousled my hair. But inside, I felt freed. From that moment, my parents and Ryan could no longer manipulate me so easily. That afternoon, I returned to the living room, once full of memories, now empty. My phone buzzed again. Mom, Dad, Ryan. I watched the screen flash but didn't touch it. I knew they weren't calling to apologize, but to demand what they thought was theirs. I opened Facebook and posted a single line. Want to know real strength? Read the deed before believing tears. No explanations, no accusations, just one sentence, enough to make me feel I'd finally taken control of my story. That night, my phone rang incessantly. Messages piled up, likely from a panicked Florida, where they'd discovered frozen accounts and a canceled transaction. I could imagine them yelling, blaming each other. I didn't know the details, but a strange calm settled over me. For years, I'd lived amid their noisy demands. Can you help your brother with some money? You're the daughter, sacrifice for the family. Don't make things hard for us. Tonight, I sat in a silence I'd created. And in that quiet, I heard my heartbeat, strong, steady. I realized silence has its own voice, sometimes louder than any reproach. The next day, I called a locksmith. As the drill whirred, I stood on the porch, feeling like the old doors of my life were being replaced. Each clank of the old lock falling was a chain breaking. I looked at the new key in my hand, its silver glinting in the faint sunlight, and suddenly wanted to cry. Not from pain, but from relief. I started cleaning, sweeping away dust, wiping windows, pulling weeds from the garden. Amid the smell of cleaner and soft music from my phone, I felt I was erasing the traces of being trampled. I wasn't just cleaning the house, I was cleaning my life. At times, I paused, leaning against a wall, staring at the empty spot where the old sofa once sat. Memories flooded back, Dad watching football there, Mom knitting, Ryan lounging with his feet on the coffee table. I'd sat in a corner quietly doing homework. Those images tugged at my heart, but they also spurred me to make this place new, a version where I was truly the owner. The second night, as the house grew tidier, I sat in the living room. My phone buzzed with dozens of messages. "Honey, listen to Mom." "Madison, you have to fix this." "Sis, you're too cruel." I gave a faint smile, setting the phone face down. For the first time, I felt no guilt saying no. I knew the battle was just beginning. They'd keep pressuring me, maybe even take it to court. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had the papers, the law, and above all, my own clarity. Sitting in the house, hearing the winter wind whistle through the windows, I whispered, "This is my home, and from today, no one can take it away." The words echoed in the empty room like a vow. My blood surged, not with anger, but with strength. I knew I'd never again be their ATM. I'd live as the true master of my home, quietly, but resolutely. If you're moved by stories like mine and feel a connection, check out my previous videos on this channel. Do you believe a knock at the door in the dead of night can change a life? That winter night in Seattle was so cold my breath turned to white mist. I was in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, trying to sleep, when urgent knocks jolted me. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, but they came again, desperate and trembling. I stepped onto the porch and opened the door. Cold wind rushed in, and there stood a frail figure. Ryan, my brother. The family's darling, who'd left me to exhaust myself paying their debts, now stood before me, ragged like a drifter. His coat was crumpled, jeans torn at the knees, shoes worn thin. His face was gaunt, beard patchy, eyes red. I'd never seen my brother like this. Ryan, once strutting with arrogant confidence, now shivered, head bowed, as if a strong gust could knock him over. "Madison!" His voice was hoarse, almost breaking. "Can I come in?" I froze. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to slam the door and leave him in the cold, but another part, the little sister who once idolized her big brother, wouldn't let me. I stepped aside. He shuffled in, shoulders hunched, carrying the weight of the world. We sat across from each other in the empty living room. The yellow lamplight made his face look even more haggard. He was silent for a long time, then burst out like a dam breaking. "Clara left me. She took the kids, said she couldn't live with a deadbeat." I gripped my tea mug, the heat searing my skin, but my heart was ice cold. I lost my job. The company cut staff, and I was first. Debts are piling up. He gave a dry, hollow laugh. "I've got nothing left, Madison." I looked at him. The brother once coddled by the family, shielded, now crumbled before me. His eyes held no trace of arrogance, only the panic of someone with nothing left to cling to. Then he looked up, eyes red, meeting mine. "All my life you carried everything. Even as kids you did my homework, took the blame so I wouldn't get scolded. As adults you worked yourself to death to pay our debts. And me, I was just selfish." His voice broke, trembling. "Give me a chance to make it right, please?" Those words pierced my heart. For a moment I couldn't tell if I was angry or pitying. Memories rushed in. I remembered young Ryan pulling me away from bullies in the schoolyard. He was my little hero. I recalled Christmas nights when he'd sneak gummy bears into my stocking, pretending they were from Santa. To me, Ryan was the best brother in the world. But other memories came too. Him squandering money, my parents rushing to shield him and pressuring me to yield. His failures, while I worked extra shifts to cover them. Mom's tears, Dad's accusing looks, and the night I sat in a freezing car because the family chose him over me. My heart was torn between two extremes, the child wanting to hug her brother and the woman needing to protect herself. Ryan bowed his head, hands trembling. I heard the stifled sobs he tried to hide. In that moment I realized, for the first time, my brother was truly sorry. Not for losing money or his wife, but for finally seeing the cost of his selfishness. But could I trust him? I'd been deceived too many times. I took a deep breath. The room froze in silence, only the clock's ticking audible. I stood, looking into his eyes. "I need time." He flinched, his eyes full of hope. I continued, slow but firm. "We'll talk tomorrow." He nodded, like a drowning man grasping a straw. I turned away, not wanting him to see my own eyes welling up. My heart was a storm, anger, pity, doubt, hope, all tangled together. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Ryan's haggard face in my living room haunted me. Part of me wanted to lock the door and throw out the past. But another whispered, maybe this is his last chance to change. Have you ever had a night where every minute feels heavy as lead, your eyes wide open, but your heart too weary to beat? That was my night. Ryan slept on the living room couch, while I lay in bed, my mind spinning like a storm. I heard the wind howling outside, Ryan shifting occasionally, and in the dark, one thing was clear: the tug-of-war within me. Part of me wanted to lock my heart, stay safe. But another whispered that this could be the final chance to prove, to myself, that forgiveness doesn't always mean weakness. I sat up, turned on the bedside lamp and, as habit, pulled out my old journal from the drawer. It was my grandmother's, who'd passed years ago but remained my greatest emotional anchor. The pages were yellowed, the ink faded, but one line I never forgot. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about finding peace in your heart." I read it dozens of times. Grandma never taught me to endure injustice, but she believed in the power of opening a small door for light to slip through. I knew now I had to choose. Let darkness consume me, or dare to crack open a window for the sun. At dawn, I walked downstairs to find Ryan sitting quietly at the kitchen table. He bowed his head, hands clasped, looking more like a scolded boy than a man in his 30s. In that moment, I glimpsed the brother who once protected me in the schoolyard. The feeling was both tender and painful. I didn't speak right away. I opened a cabinet, grabbed 2 mugs, and poured hot coffee. The steam carried a rich aroma, filling the quiet kitchen. I set 1 mug before him, one for me. Ryan looked up, his tired eyes holding a faint spark of hope. I took a long breath and said slowly but clearly, "You can stay, but you have to work." He stared, as if he couldn't believe his ears. I continued. I'm starting a small pottery studio in the suburbs. I need help. You'll work there. Not because you're my brother, but because you need to learn to stand on your own. The kitchen fell silent after my words. I looked into his eyes, offering no sympathy, no cracks for him to exploit. Then Ryan nodded, a strong, trembling nod. Tears welled in his eyes. His voice choked. Thank you, Madison. I I won't let you down again. Seeing that, my heart softened. Maybe this was the first time Ryan truly humbled himself before me. The first time he admitted he needed me, not as a wallet, but as a lifeline to learn how to live again. But I reminded myself, this wasn't forgiveness. It was a chance for him to prove his change. Deep down, I knew how much he'd hurt me over the years. One nod today couldn't erase those scars, but it gave me a sense that I'd risen above the pain, no longer the passive little sister, but the one setting the rules. I sipped my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my throat, and whispered to myself, Grandma, I'm not forgiving easily, but I've chosen to give him a door. If he wants to walk through, he has to do it on his own. That breakfast held no arguments, no resentment, just silence, a different kind, the silence of a new beginning. Ryan ate a few bites of toast, his face slightly lighter. I watched the morning sun stream through the window, lighting the steaming coffee mugs, a strange feeling stirring, part worry, part hope. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Ryan could fall back any time, but I also knew I was strong enough not to fall with him. That light was a signal, reminding me I'd come far enough from the darkness to stop fearing it. I was no longer bound by the past, no longer trembling before false tears. This time I chose to look forward and set terms. Do you believe a house can breathe? Can come alive like a person? I do, because I saw it in the home that was once my deepest wound. Months passed since that desperate night Ryan knocked. Seattle shifted from frigid winter to gentle spring. In that time, much changed. My parents kept trying to contact me, voicemails, letters, even relatives calling on their behalf. Their words swung from soft pleas, honey, we're old, give us a chance to start over, to accusations. You're too selfish, you can't abandon your family. But I'd learned to listen without my heart wavering. I didn't respond. I no longer wondered if I was too harsh. I knew clearly. Returning to them meant losing myself again. And I'd come too far to let that happen. While my parents remained stuck in their cycle, Ryan surprised me. His first day at the pottery studio was comically clumsy. Clay splattered everywhere, his hands shook on the wheel. Once, he shaped something so lopsided we both burst out laughing. But unlike before, Ryan didn't quit. He arrived early, stayed late, cleaned up, learned to listen. Some days, I saw him sit for hours, practicing a single smooth stroke on the clay. His eyes, watching his cracked creations, held no arrogance, only patience. And slowly, from hands that only took, he began to create. One time, I stood in the corner, watching Ryan struggle with a small vase. Clay coated his hands, sweat beaded on his forehead, but he didn't stop. In that moment I thought, maybe giving someone a chance is also a way to find peace for myself. I realized I wasn't doing this just for Ryan, but for me, to free my heart from resentment, to let my wounds heal. The house changed too, day by day. I planted a rose trellis on the porch. Each morning, watering them, I smelled damp earth mixed with faint floral notes, a reminder that even barren things can bloom. The living room, once heavy with blame and silence, now glowed with a new beige sofa and carefully chosen paintings on the walls. My parents' old room became a small studio. Sunlight streamed through the wide window, illuminating pottery tools, bookshelves, and my new business plans. Each time I stepped inside, a fresh energy surged, as if the bricks themselves urged me forward. One afternoon, as the sun dipped west, I sat on the porch steps, watching Ryan carefully place wet pottery vases on a drying rack. He wiped sweat from his brow and looked up, giving an awkward smile. That smile held no trace of the pampered boy. It was the smile of a man learning to live responsibly. I don't know how far Ryan will go, but I see real change in him. and that softens my heart. That night, I stepped onto the porch, taking a deep breath. The air was crisp, but the fading sunlight left a warm golden streak on the roses. I closed my eyes, letting the light touch my face, seeping into every corner of my heart. For years, I thought strength was enduring or avenging to prove I wasn't weak. But standing here, I understood. True strength isn't in revenge, but in knowing when to close a door and when to crack open a window for hope. This house, once a symbol of pain, every brick, every door, every rose on the porch told a story that I dared to stand, to choose, to forgive without losing myself. And most importantly, I found peace. Looking back on this journey, I see the greatest treasure wasn't the house or the money lost, but the growth in my soul. I learned to stand firm when betrayed, to keep my heart from turning to stone, and to offer chances while protecting myself. This house, the roses, and Ryan's clumsy smile in the pottery studio all remind me strength isn't in vengeance, but in letting go, forgiving, and rebuilding. I share this story not just to record my pain and recovery, but to send a message. Anyone can find peace by setting boundaries and choosing their own path. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and follow my channel. I believe we can create a small corner of love where every story becomes strength for someone else.